Hello everyone and welcome to my video of things I have discovered on the beta so far. What to expect from the video is new stuff that I've changed coming from Wrath of the Lich King to Cataclysm. If you're like me and you haven't played Cataclysm since 2010, you probably do not remember all the changes that happened in this expansion. So, in this video, I will cover all the changes I have encountered so far from playing the beta. The changes will be in 3 different categories. It will be general changes that affects all classes. It will be changes specific to the Warlock, since I have leveled the Warlock from 1 to 80 on the beta. And lastly, it will be the leveling experience from 1 to 80 as a Warlock and how that looks now in Cataclysm. Let's cover the general changes first. The first change I want to cover is there are no longer any ranks of spells anymore. You can no longer downrank any spells. Instead, when you go to your trainer and you learn a spell, you get that spell and now it's just gonna scale with your level instead. The next change is now you have specializations you have to choose from level 10. If I choose Affliction specialization, I get Unstable Affliction, for example, and Shadow Mastery at level 10. And that also means that if I chose Affliction, I have to put in 31 talents in Affliction tree before I can put it into either Demonology or Destruction. We also get a revamp to how glyphs work in Cataclysm. You will now have Prime glyphs, Major glyphs, and Minor glyphs. And the biggest change is you now only need to buy, for example, Glyph of Corruption once. If you've learned it once, you cannot learn it again. And if you want to change your glyphs now, you need Vanishing Powder that you can buy at the Inscription Trainers. Now you no longer need like 5 different glyphs in your bags if you want to swap glyphs during a raid, which is a very welcome change in my opinion. We now also do no longer get a talent point every level. We now get a talent point at level 10, 11, and after that we get it every 2 levels until level 80. And then again from 80 to 85 we now gain 1 talent point again, which means at the end you will have 41 talent points total. So for example, if I'm Affliction Warlock, it would be impossible for me to get to the 3rd row in a different specialization with the new change. When it comes to Cataclysm, it is also now very important to actually be in a guild. Like, you're low-key griefing yourself if you're not. A guild can now be leveled to level 25 in Cataclysm, and you will get a lot of perks for simply just being in a max level guild. You will get a higher quantity of materials from like mining, skinning, herbalism, disenchanting. When you loot gold, an extra amount of gold will be put into the guild bank. The duration of buffs from all guild cauldrons is increased, which is flasks. You get 10% more XP, 10% more justice points. You can instantly send mail to other guildies. You get more flask from the guild cauldron. Your heartstone is now half cooldown. You can mass summon your entire raid with the assistance of no one. As long as they're guildies, you get 10% more honor. You can mass rest now as anyone. You can put down a mobile banking, so you can access your guild bank from anywhere. You have 10% more mount speed. You get 10% more rep. You lose less durability when you die. You can move faster if you die. And you get a higher chance of gaining skill points when you do trade skills. In Cataclysm, you will, for example, no longer see spell power as a caster on items that are not your weapon. Your weapon will still have spell power, but instead, spell power on all the other pieces are now replaced by intellect. Intellect now, however, is the new king for casters. Agi is the king for the rogue and feral druid, for example, and strength for the death knight, warrior, red paladin. But intellect now is still increases your mana and your spell crit, but it now also converts almost in a 1-to-1 ratio into spell power. So intellect is the new king for all us casters. Starting at level 80, you will now get mastery. What mastery does depends on what specialization you have chosen. For example, an Affliction Warlock, you get more periodic shadow damage. As a Demonology Warlock, your demons will do more damage and it will make your Metamorph stronger. Make you do more damage in Metamorph. And then as a Destruction Warlock, you just do more fire damage. Another very, very big change coming in Cataclysm is you will now be able to fly in Azeroth at level 60. It is currently not available on the beta, or I would love to show you. Now, as I said earlier, for example, intellect is now the king stat for casters. In Cataclysm, you have 5% bonus to like your intellect, agility, or strength. As a cloth user, I have this by default. I don't have to do anything. But for example, if you're a rogue, a druid, a paladin, etc., you only get this bonus if you wear gear that is appropriate for your class. For example, as a paladin, you would have to wear all plate gear to get this extra 5%. As a rogue, you have to wear all leather gear. As a shaman, all mail gear, for example, for you to get this bonus. It's a very strong bonus. Just like in Lich King, the go-to professions, as of right now, unless something changes, is still going to be tailoring and engineering, at least from a caster perspective. The average spell power you get from tailoring is way higher than any other profession can give you. And engineering is still just engineering. It's just too good. And the biggest change to engineering is, for example, in Lich King, you had to choose on your gloves if you wanted the on-use from engineering that increased your haste, or if you wanted an enchant. However, in Cataclysm, all the engineering enchants are now considered tinkers, and they stack with enchants. So you no longer have to make that choice, and you can add an enchant and an engineering enchant to the same item. The next change is mostly for people who used armor penetration during Lich King. All armor penetration stats will be converted into something else come Cataclysm. I'm fairly sure that if you're, for example, using armor pen gems right now in Lich King, they will be converted to crit gems when the pre-patch comes out. Another change to stats is that, for example, Spirit can now be converted into hit rating if you're a hybrid class, like a Shadow Priest, Ele Shaman, Boomy. You'll be able to convert a portion of your spirit into hit from your talents. This is very, very helpful for the hybrids, since you can no longer get hit from your talents, for example, as a warlock. There's no hit anymore from any of these talents at all. And the hit debuff from Shadow Priest and Boomy in Lich King does not exist in Cataclysm. So if your hit cap is 17% as a caster, you need to get 17% from your actual stats now. Now that we're talking about the stats, let's also cover the Haste rework, and mostly for dots. In Lich King, Haste would reduce the total amount of time that your dot was on a target if it scaled with Haste, for example with Warlocks having Glyph of Quick Decay. However, the way it's supposed to work in Cataclysm, it currently does not work on the beta, but I'm sure it will get fixed at some point. The way it works now is if you reach enough haste rating to reach a certain breakpoint, for example, if I put up a corruption on a target and I have enough haste rating, it will now get another tick from that one cast I put up. It no longer, like for example, puts your corruption down to like a 6-second full duration with enough haste. I like this change. I like it a lot. It was very frustrating as an Affliction Warlock sometimes doing Drain Soul Execute phase, and you see like your corruption is like a 4-second total cast because you got every proc in the world. I think it's a very, very nice change, and I'm looking forward to trying it out. The last thing I want to cover for the general changes coming in Cataclysm is we now get Reforging, where you can, for example, take an item like this, and let's say you're already hit capped. So this item doesn't really feel that good. Then you can take this item to the Reforger and you can change that hit rating into something else. You can't convert all of it, but you will convert a portion of it into, like, for example, crit rating or mastery if you so prefer, which is a very nice. In Cataclysm, you can also now transmog items, and it is still unsure exactly which version of transmog we're getting. We don't, for example, know if we're getting the full-on one-to-one retail version where you can transmog even legendary items. If you can hide your shoulders, if you can hide like basically every item. We don't actually know yet. And the last thing I want to cover that is specific is Archaeology is also coming in Cataclysm. I'll be showing some stuff on the screen now, which is the insanely overpowered items you can get. And do notice, on all these items, they are bind on account. Like, for example, the two-handed sword is the best in slot weapon in phase 1, and it's bind on account. So if you're playing like an unholy DK, you want to play Arms Warrior, you want to play Red Paladin, you just do Archaeology, and you have your phase 1 BIS weapon already. It is insanely powerful. There are many good stats, and I almost want to say it feels mandatory to do Archaeology, no matter like what you play, because the items are just way too good. I could be talking all day about Archaeology, but let's instead go over to the Warlock changes. Warlocks now finally get an offensive cooldown in Demon Soul. Demon Soul will do different things depending on what pet you currently have active. Imp increases your critical strike chance of destruction spells. The Voidwalker makes all threat generated by you transfer to your Voidwalker for 15 seconds. If you have a Succubus, Shadow Bolt damage increased by 10% for 20 seconds. If you have a Fell Hunter, all your periodic shadow damage is now increased by 20% for 20 seconds. And the big one is Felguard. Spell Haste increased by 15%, and your fire and shadow damage is increased by 10% for 20 seconds. We now also get another nice little thing called Dark Intent. If you know Focus Magic from Lich King, you can basically consider this its brother. Instead of crit though, it will be haste. Very, very nice spell. Speaking of cooldowns, in Cataclysm, you still have your Doomguard and your Infernal. But you can now summon your Infernal or Doomguard and it will not dismiss your pets anymore. This is so helpful in you no longer have to figure out when is the boss 1 minute away from dying, so you know when it's time to summon your Infernal. You can now just basically summon it whenever. It's a very, very nice change. Now that we're talking about the cooldowns and all that, let's also cover soul shards. You no longer have to fill up your bags with soul shards like before. You will now have 3 soul shards as a baseline, and the only way you can spend these soul shards is by using Soul Burn. Soul Burn will empower a certain amount of spells for you. For Drain Life, it will make it 100% faster cast. For your pets, it will make your next pet summon instant. For Demonic Circle Teleport, it will give you a short burst of movement speed. For your Soulfire, it will make it instant. And then we also have a Healthstone, which will give you more max HP after using a Healthstone. And then Searing Pain, giving your Searing Pain some more crit for 6 seconds. It's a very, very nice thing. And the only way to generate soul shards is by either doing Soul Harvest, which you can think of as evocation, but instead for HP, and you can only do it outside combat. You can also do it by, for example, Shadow Burn, or the good old way, Drain Soul. Another big change is how curses now work in Cataclysm. Now, your Agony and Doom have gone to a category of which is Bane, and all the others are still curses. This means you can now do Curse of Elements, for example, on a target, and still apply your Agony. Agony and Doom will still share the same spot though. So you can't Agony and Doom the same target. And Doom now deals damage every 15 seconds. Let's talk about the pets. So far, I am rather confused with how the pets actually work in Cataclysm. Your Fell Hunter is now basically your best pet for single target DPS baseline. If you're Demonology Warlock, you wanna use your Fell Hunter over your Fell Guard. Unless that's an AoE situation. On single target DPS, your Fell Hunter is now your strongest pet. I don't know if this changes at a certain point in the game, but even when I was doing some leveling as Demonology, I dismissed my Fell Guard and got my Fell Hunter out because it was so much stronger. A part of that may be due to the change of Shadow Bite. Shadow Bite now deals 15% more damage for each dot you have on the target. I'm very confused by this. It feels kind of bad not using your Fell Guard permanently as a Demonology Warlock. It just feels wrong. Especially since it's like a baseline spell you get when you choose the specialization. But we'll see how this changes at max level. It may change, I don't know. I'm a noob. Speaking of pets though, we also now get Soul Link as a baseline spell at level 20. You no longer need to talent this, you just get it at level 20 at your trainer. And since we're still on the pet topic, Demonic Pact is now just a flat 10% spell damage increase. There is no longer anything like a support Demonology Warlock that stacks as much spell power as possible to be a support demo. That is completely gone. And since we're on the Demonology topic, Decimation, which is your execute, is now triggered at 25% in Cataclysm instead of 35%. We also have Soul Shatter, a little change to that. This used to be a 5-minute cooldown, now it's a 2-minute cooldown, and now it also reduces threat by 90% instead of only 50%. So Soul Shatter got buffed quite a bit. But the biggest buff to some of the spells has to be Soul Stones. Now, in Cataclysm, you can use Soul Stone as a combat res. You no longer have to pre-put it on someone, you can just use it as a combat res in the fight. Which is insanely strong. I don't know how else to put it. Very, very good. We also have a change to Fell Armor. Fell Armor will still give you flat spell power, but now it will cause a 3% of any single target spell damage you deal to be healed back to you. We also have I would say a big change to Shadow Flame. Like Shadow Flame now actually deals very respectable damage. And I've even been told that it's a part of your DPS rotation at max level. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, having to actually use it instead of it being kind of useless in Lich King, basically. The last thing I want to cover around Warlocks is a small change to your pets as well. Let's see, where is it? Right here. Devour Magic is now only an offensive dispel. And if you want a defensive spell for your teammates now, let's see. Where is my imp? Am I blind? Ah, here it is. If you want a defensive dispel, you now have to use your imp right here. Burns harmful magic off the target, removing one harmful spell from a friend. So that's a big change for like more PvP related. But it can still be used sometimes in PvE. The last change around pets though, and like Warlocks in general, is, let me get this Fell Hunter back out. Fell Intelligence is now mana and MP5. it is no longer intellect and spirit like it was in Lich King. And yeah, that's about it for the changes around Warlock. Now, let's get into the leveling part, which is very interesting and weird, I promise you. The first thing I want to cover for leveling is your wand feels like it actually just sucks now. I don't know what they did to wands, but it feels like every single wand is like a 3-second wind up time before it actually attacks, even like the fast ones. I don't know if it's just broken or what, but I never really wanted to wand, even when I got like a wand at level 7 by a friend. Like, it felt bad using that wand. So I don't know what's changed, but it just feels horrible. I never use my wand anymore. Now, for the biggest change when it comes to leveling from 1 to 80 is, in the past, in Lich King, I would always say, go Affliction. Every other spec is a bait. But that is not the case anymore. Affliction feels horrible. Some part of that currently on the beta is that all dots are supposed to be able to crit, just like baseline. But currently on the beta, not a single dot can crit. And when you have talents that increases your dot crit chance by quite a bit, Affliction just doesn't feel good. However, even if your dots could crit, I do not like Affliction from 1 to 80. Your dots feel very, very weak. I don't know if they are tuned the right way. Like, when I was doing Affliction and Demonology early on, it honestly felt like I was using 2 ranks too low spells. Like, it took forever to kill mobs. And also, Siphon Life has now been changed, as you can see. Now it's a 50% chance when your corruption deals damage to heal you for 2% of your HP. It is no longer a percent of your corruption total damage that heals you. So your sustain is a lot worse as well as an Affliction Warlock. However, the spec I will now recommend everyone to do, unless something is changed around like how good dots are at lower level, is actually Destruction. While I was streaming my level 1 to 80 journey, some people told me, go try Destruction. And in my brain, like my Lich King brain, I'm like, no, there is no way I'm doing that. But I should have listened. Destruction leveling is legitimately around 3 times faster leveling than Affliction and Demonology currently. Even if they fix dots being able to crit, I would still do Destruction 1 to 80. You are killing mobs with 2 to 3 casts. Your sustain is incredibly good because of Soul Leech. Every time you Shadowburn, Soulfire or Chaos Bolt, you restore 4% of your total HP and mana, and you give yourself replenishment. I never had to sit down and drink even once after going Destruction. It was so good. When I got to level 60, I even took Destruction into the TPC dungeons, and I was able to solo the TPC dungeons as a Destruction Warlock. Like most of the bosses, you can simply just pump in as much damage as possible and you will kill them before they kill you. I was able to solo Underbuck, Blood Furnace, and Ramparts. I didn't attempt Slave Pens because Warlocks did it so much during TBC, but I might upload my POV from soloing these dungeons as a Destruction Warlock, because I feel like it might actually be a viable XP farm. Like, when I went in blind into Ramparts, not sure how to approach it, I cleared entirety of Ramparts in about 40 to 45 minutes, and it gave me like a full level of XP in Outland, which is very good comparing it to questing normally. And I think with Heirlooms and some optimization from some smart people, like grinding dungeons in Outland can be very, very good compared to questing, and a lot more fun as well. The last thing I want to cover around the leveling segment is your talents as a Warlock now, specifically for leveling, are incredibly boring. there's no longer really anything you're like, wow, I cannot wait to get to this talent. That is gonna make my leveling so much better. Like, if you're Demonology Warlock, it is incredibly awkward. In the first, like, 3 rows here, you don't really get anything that makes you level faster. And then you get to Hand of Gul'dan, and you realize it doesn't even do that much damage at lower levels, and it feels kind of awkward. And then you see you have talents like Molten Core here, which you get at like level 40, right? And Molten Core is now only for your Incinerate spells, not even Soulfire anymore. And you don't even get Incinerate until level 64. It's just incredibly awkward the way the talents are now. And it feels like the talents are made for you to already be at least level 80 plus. For example, Demonology Warlock, until you're like level 80, you can't even get like the first reduction or cast time on your spells. You can't also get this, which is 1 second reduced cast time on Soulfire and Incinerate until like level 83. So Demonology just feels very, very awkward since you cannot reduce the cast time on your most popular spells until level 83. So yeah, I just feel like all the Cataclysm talents are built around you already being max level, which makes leveling not as fun, in my opinion. But at least you get 3 new heirlooms in Cataclysm. You will get now a helm. You will get a cloak. You will get a pair of legs as well. And there's also a little thing here. Now, I'm not sure, but we have some rings here that we don't know if we're actually gonna get when Cataclysm comes out. These were in the game files in original Cataclysm, but never actually added to the game. Right now, they're in our heirloom tab, and we don't know if we're getting them. We'll find out eventually, I guess. But yeah, I feel like the video has probably been probably far too long at this point. And if you stayed until the end, I appreciate it. If you enjoy this, like learning all the stuff that's new that I figure out, I will try to make this like a weekly thing where I post a video every Sunday, summing up all the new things that I figured out. And also, if you know things that you feel like I missed, which is very important, just post it in the comments and I'll add it to the video next week so we can make sure to get all the information out there for people to learn all the new things that are changing. So yeah, if you enjoyed it, guys, I appreciate it and look forward to the next one. If you want to watch me play some Cataclysm Beta live, you can go catch me on Twitch. I stream about 4, 5, 6 times a week, depending on my schedule at the university. But yeah, catch me on Twitch, TakenoteTV. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day, wonderful week, a wonderful year. I will see you later, my friends. Bye-bye.